The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory be to you,
O
Lord.
Lord. Jesus told his disciples a parable. Can a blind person guide a blind person? Will not both fall into a pit? No disciple is superior to the teacher, but when fully trained, every disciple will be like his teacher. Why do you notice the splinter in your brother's eye, but do not perceive the wooden beam in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, "Brother, let me remove that splinter in your eye," when you do not even notice the wooden beam in your own eye? You hypocrite, remove the wooden beam from your eyes first, then you will see clearly to remove the splinter in your brother's eyes. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise be to you, Lord Jesus Christ. Do you remember where you were on 9/11? You do? I do too. I was on vacation in Ireland. Father Nestor was in the seminary, and he and his fellow students were allowed to watch what was happening in New York. It brings back many memories, especially of those people who sacrificed their lives for others. Remembering what the Lord says, greater love than this no one has, than to lay down one's life for one's friends. So let me tell you two stories about two people who did that. The first comes from New Jersey, and of course, having spent 40 years in New Jersey, I'm partial to New Jersey. This man came from Closters, New Jersey. He was the vice president of a large company, and the company office was on the 99th floor of the second tower building. And when the first plane crashed, he ordered all his employees back from the windows. And then he ordered the evacuation of the building. So he went to the main door and held it open until every single person had left the building. And then he left. Down the stairs and outside the tower, he continued to help building, making phone calls. And the last thing people remember about Ron, of him giving his telephone to another person, he was never seen again. Never seen again. His wife Janet and his sons have established a foundation to recognize his heroism, and they call it Open the Door for Other Persons, which is a wonderful thought. And his son Robert says, "My dad was a quiet, humble man who died after holding the door open for others. As a family, we're trying to do the same thing, to help people move through the pain so that they can begin to dream again." Number one story. Number two story is about a priest whose family came from Ireland. His name was Father Michael Judge. Born in Brooklyn, and at the age of 6, his father died. So he got a job at Penn Station, shining shoes. But across the street from Penn Station is a very famous parish called St. Francis, 31st Street. And that parish feeds hundreds of people every single day. So he knew the friars there, and that would impact his life, so that later on, when he decided to enter the seminary, he became a Franciscan friar. Ordained, was assigned to a parish in Boston, then New York, and eventually he ended up in New Jersey in my diocese and served St. Mary's in Rutherford there for many years, which was just 10 minutes away from where I was. And you know, East Rutherford is where the Giants have their stadium. Eventually, he became an alcoholic, joined AA, and that had a tremendous influence on his life. And then the most important assignment of all, chaplain to the New York Fire Department. There he was known as Father Michael. He was all available to baptize their children, to marry their sons and daughters, to celebrate the funerals of fathers and mothers. He was loved by all the firemen, and he loved them also. On 9/11, the word came to the church, to the office, at what had happened. So he rushed across the street to administer the sacrament of the sick to the dying. And the first person he met was Mayor Giuliani. And Giuliani says, Father Michael, pray for the city, pray for the victims. And so he continued to anoint people with the holy oil. And as this tower exploded, he had to reach down to hear the confession of the man. So in order to hear his confession, he took off his helmet. And at that very moment, some of the debris hit him on the head, killing him instantly. One of the most famous photographs of 9/11 is of 4 firemen carrying Father Michael away from the debris, taking him to the Catholic church called St. Peter, and placing his body in front of the main altar. At his funeral 3 days later, 3,000 people turned up, including President Clinton. To the people who knew Father Michael, he is a saint. There's no need for the Vatican to beatify him or canonize him. In their eyes, he is a saint, because throughout his life, he served all of God's people, no matter what their ethnic background, no matter what their religion was. Member of AA and so many other societies. And truly, he followed the Lord and gave his life for his brothers and sisters. Greater love than this no man has than to give one's life for one's friends. And so as we gather here this evening, we remember all those victims. One company, for example, called Carter Fitzgerald on Wall Street, they lost 700 employees on that day. And across the Hudson River in New Jersey, there is the town of Hoboken, where Frank Sinatra was born. And the local parish there, that week, they had 53 funerals. Do you imagine that? 53 funerals at St. Boniface? Could imagine the impact it had. So we remember all the deceased. We remember the 40% of people who were never identified. We remember the fire department, the police department, the first responders, all those people, not just from New York, but the whole metropolitan area. Priest friends of mine who rushed to New York that day to help and to attend the sick and the dying. We remember all those people this evening and the survivors who are still struggling with their lives. Sure, of course.
Gracias al Padre Mike, Father Mike, por estas palabras en inglés. Solo quiero anotar en español, de acuerdo a la palabra que Dios nos regala hoy, de cómo cuando hay momentos tan difíciles en nuestra vida y sobre todo como se vivió muchos años atrás acá, faltan esos héroes, ¿no?, que el Padre Mike está hablando hoy. Un laico, una persona como ustedes, un sacerdote que entregó su vida, y muchos hermanos que están hoy aquí, hermanos de la policía, bienvenidos, No sé si de pronto puedes pasar aquí también a acompañarnos para que de verdad que ustedes son representantes de las instituciones y sobre todo esas instituciones con la autoridad de Dios, ¿no? Para hacer respetar, para hacer mejor nuestra convivencia humana. Y hoy estamos rindiéndole esta Eucaristía especialmente en agradecimiento por tantas personas que se han ofrecido por los demás y que no ven tanto, como dice la palabra de Dios, esa cosita tan pequeñita en los demás, sino miran más su debilidad para poder ayudar a los demás. A partir de esa debilidad, saber que el único que nos puede ayudar es Dios y no mirar tanto el defecto de los otros, sino ver las virtudes mejor de los otros, ver mi debilidad, pero saber que Dios me puede ayudar en mi debilidad para ayudar a muchos, como lo hicieron estas personas en ese día de confusión, en ese día trágico, pero en ese día que también hoy estamos bendiciendo a todos los hermanos que se entregaron, a todos los hermanos que ofrecieron su vida por los otros, por salvar a muchos, y sobre todo para orar, para que Dios nos proteja, nos ayude a estar bendecidos por Él, pero sobre todo si de pronto llegan esas situaciones, que ustedes y yo podamos estar llenos del amor de Dios para poder no pensar solo en nosotros, sino pensar en ayudar a los otros, no atacar a los otros, no herir a los otros, no criticar a los otros, no ofender a los demás, como nos dice hoy la palabra, de ser mejor instrumentos de bendición, de unión, de colaboración, de solidaridad, de ver lo bueno que Dios nos ha regalado y no lo malo que a veces solo observamos en los demás y a veces hasta en nosotros mismos. No, ese tronco que nos abra la palabra es para también no tampoco atacarnos nosotros, sino reconocer que somos débiles, que es cierto que a veces tenemos unos troncos bien pesados de nuestras debilidades, pero que se los entregamos a Dios para que Él nos haga más ligeros, para que nos haga más alegres, para que nos ayude a hacer testimonio como estos testimonios que nos contaba el padre Mike, del padre Michael Judge.
Yes.
Michael Judge. Impresionante ese testimonio de este sacerdote. Mis hermanos, continuemos en esta celebración con ese corazón agradecido, uniéndonos como iglesia, uniéndonos como país, uniéndonos en el mundo entero para rechazar todo aquello que no sea de Dios, todo aquello que esté atacando a los otros, en cualquier forma que sea, porque a veces nosotros también somos esos instrumentos que no son de Dios, pero Dios quiere que seamos instrumentos de Dios, de bendición. Digan conmigo, así sea.